Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to have a little chat this afternoon about food. But before we start, we're just going to wait until everybody is here before we begin. I've got my laptop set up in front of me so I can look at my notes. So if I do look down occasionally, it's just to make sure we're all in the right place and I'm not going off the track. This is the first... Hello, welcome to the Funhouse. If you're just arriving, thanks for coming along. If you're here, feel free to give me comments, tell me who you are. If you've got any questions about what you would like me to talk about, either this week or in the future, then just fire away. I've got my laptop set up down here just to see the comments and look at my notes in case there's anything I miss or there's anything in my hair. So this is the first of our BaseTalk, as I have called it, because in my grand scheme of if/when we ever get around to opening a gym, all the classes are going to be called Base something. Kind of like EasyJet, they've got EasyJet, Easy Car, Easy Hotel, Easy Gym, that kind of thing. Or at least that's what it looks like in my head, anyway. So today, BaseTalk, we're just going to talk about some things to do with fitness, nutrition, health, training. Today we're mostly going to focus on foods, but that's quite a big subject, so we're going to try and keep it within half an hour. There's absolutely tons we could talk about for hours and hours and hours on end, but we're just going to cover the main subjects of food, different groups, calories, bang for your buck as I like to call it, and a couple of other things. If you've got any questions at any point, just fire away, stick them in the comments section and I will answer any questions. If you've got any subjects that you want me to cover going forwards down the line, then just let me know. Maureen is here. Joe is asking about knee joint maintenance. Yeah, that's certainly something that we can discuss. This kind of all follows on from a sort of recovery workout session that we did last week over on the members page. What kind of exercises we should be doing to maintain our bodies, make sure we're staying healthy, we're staying flexible, and keeping ourselves fit for the future. Which kind of leads me on to a rather, or what I think is a good analogy for the human body. Sometimes it can be pretty complex to think about what we are in humans, and there's an awful lot going inside, but to take it away from us and put it in a different perspective is I like to compare the human body to a car. So imagine your car, if you will. I have a Vauxhall Corsa. It says it's brown. I think it's kind of golden, bronzy. Anyway, think of your car. It's got 4 wheels, 4 tires, of which you have to keep in good condition to make sure that it's A, legal, but B, also performs well. That's basically just your trainers. Do you take good care of your feet? Do you buy yourself trainers every so often? Or are you running on raggedy old trainers that you've had for 40 years? They're not supporting your feet. They're covered in mud. They're not doing you any good. Same kind of thing. I'm not saying you should go out and you should buy, Michelin 750-pound tires per wheel, but it's good to take care of your feet, give them good support, good shoes, something that's going to support you for the type of workouts you do. If you think about the engine of your car, it's just like our internals, all our organs. If you have a high-performance petrol engine car, but you stick just any old gunk in it, it's not going to go. It's not going to perform at its best. If you don't take it for an MOT and a service once a year, it's going to fall apart. It's going to break down. It's not going to perform on you. It's the exact same with human body. If you don't take good care of your human body, yeah, okay, especially when you're younger, you'll manage, you'll get through. But as we get older, as our body starts to wear down, if you're not taking good care of it, it's going to start falling apart on us. So it's important to not only take good care in the recovery and the training side of things, but with what we're eating. One of the things that somebody mentioned last week they wanted to talk about was sugar, which is something I get asked about quite a lot, specifically when it comes to fruit, because we've all heard that fruit is high in sugar, but it's natural sugar, so it's good for you. It is and it isn't. Sugar is sugar. Excess sugar consumption can lead to health problems, diabetes, just for one. So if you have hundreds of apples a day with a whole bunch of oranges and you're consuming loads of sugar from natural sources, that can have the same effect down the line that eating tons and tons of sugary sweets and cans of Coke can have. not many people overindulge on fruits, but it's important to be aware that sugar is still sugar. Generally, when we're talking about fruits, the benefits of eating fruits and vegetables that have sugar in them are outweighed, the positives are outweighed the negatives. The negatives obviously being the natural sugar, the positives being the vitamins and minerals, the fibres that are really important for the human body in its growth, its development, and its general well-being. But it's important to be aware of how much sugar you're consuming. So I've got a really small graph here of what I think are kind of the 3, 4, 5 main fruits that people eat. We've got raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, oranges, and bananas. I should have put in apples, but I didn't. I chose oranges instead. And they're not massive. So for 100 grams for each of these, which is not an awful lot, and you probably don't even eat that much anyway, a small square punnet of raspberries is 150 grams. So, you know, that's 2/3 of a punnet. You're not going to eat that. So 2/3 of a punnet of raspberries, 100 grams of raspberries is about 4.5 to 5 grams of sugar, which is not massive. If you're having that 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day, then yes, that is massive. But if you're having the recommended portion, then it's totally fine. Strawberries are slightly higher at 6 grams of sugar per 100 grams. Blueberries slightly higher again at 10 grams. Now here's a fun one. Bananas. I've got one right here actually. Bananas. Bananas are a little bit higher in sugar. However, because of the build-up of the sugar, it's a much more complex and starchy sugar than those other fruits that I just gave examples of. Certainly more so when they're greener, they're sort of fresher, than they are when they're ripe, or as my gran used to have them, completely black. I remember once telling me that she actually thought bananas were black, just because she's old. But anyway, green bananas, newer bananas, fresh bananas especially have a much more starchy, complex sugar. So complex that as it gets into your system, it can't be broken down quick enough for your body to use that as energy. However, what can use it is your intestines, your gut, which is really important for healthy internals of your gut. You know, your Actimel yogurts, your proactive stuff. Bananas, especially the green ones, are really, really good for the digestive system. If you've got your yellow bananas, which this guy quite is, he's starting to turn a little black, the sugar starts to break down naturally, so it's closer to the kind of sugars that you get in your soft fruits. My auntie has just sparked up and said that when my gran was young, there were no bananas. Well, maybe it was my mother. Not that she's old, but, you know, I'm 30, so she can't be 40. So yeah, bananas are a little bit different. The yellower they are. I had an interesting question from Karen there. Is this the same for lactose sugar? Very interesting. So that's one of the points about the different sugars in a banana. Sugar is lactose, it is glucose, it is fructose, anything that rhymes with ose, really. However, they're different complexities. Okay, so glucose is one of the simplest in that it's just 2 bonds of sugar together, so it doesn't take much effort for the human body to chop it in half into the single molecules of sugar and use that for energy. The more complex ones that the body needs to put more effort into breaking down, like your lactoses, like your fructoses, they are treated a little differently. Lactose you mainly find in milk, yogurts, cheese, that kind of thing. And that's why some people have allergies or issues with lactose, in that it is more complex for the body to break down, so they can have an adverse reaction to it. Sugar is a fun one. It's a difficult one to work with, but the main thing, like with everything, is just balance. Is just finding that right balance between eating enough to be healthy and to get all the nutrients, but not eating so much that you're either over-consuming in calories as a whole or just individual sugars as it is. So on your box of I've got an empty box of raspberries, but I don't know where the lid went. On your box of fruit, on your cereals, or whatever it is you're eating, it'll have your little, what do they call it, the traffic light system, your greens, your oranges, and your reds. Have a look at that the next time you're making your breakfast, your lunch, or your dinner, and just be aware. Just go, oh, so raspberries, 100 grams of that is actually 4.6 grams of sugar. That's not too bad. But if I have 2 portions, well, that's going to start to add up. So it's important to be aware. And that kind of brings me on to the next subject I want to talk about, which is serving sizes. I was talking to one of my clients the other day about sugar and how sometimes the traffic light system can be extremely deceiving. So if you saw the picture I put up on the Facebook page earlier, was a picture from a box of Cocoa Pops, okay? Karen's just said she's got a cereal addiction that she's working through, as do I. Cocoa Pops, I love them. They're for kids. Karen and I are still kids, as far as I'm concerned. A serving of Cocoa Pops, as they say, is 30 grams, okay? And for that 30 grams, you get 115 calories and you get 25 grams of carbohydrates, which is pretty much pure sugar. However, I don't know about anybody else, but me certainly, a 30-gram bowl of Cocoa Pops is probably like 6 or 7 actual pops itself. I have at least double that, if not probably triple that, because I'm greedy. So, whilst if you look at the traffic light system on a box of Cocoa Pops, you think, oh wow, there's only 115 calories per serving. Are you actually only having 1 serving? Now that applies to everything. I was looking at a tin of Heinz soup. Their suggested serving is half a tin. I usually have a whole tin, just because I'm greedy. Half a tin is 100 calories, a whole tin is 200 calories. So if you think you're having a portion by having a whole tin, you might actually be having double the amount of calories that you thought you were consuming. So it's really important just to be aware of what a serving size is in relation to how many calories it contains, along with the other facts and figures, your carbohydrates, your proteins, and your fats. When it comes to food, all food fits into 3 categories. And all food generally has a makeup of these 3 categories. We call them macronutrients, which are simply your proteins, your fats, and your carbs. That's every food group every food item has to fit into either individually one of those groups or a combination of all 3. So back to our trusty banana, it's mostly sugar, which is a form of carbohydrate, so it's mostly carbs. There's a little bit of protein in there, a little bit of fat, but not really worth considering about. I don't have anything else lying around, but I've got some other examples to show us how much of eating one thing has that certain many calories, and a similar food item that might be tastier but doesn't have quite as many calories in it, or as many protein in it or fats in it. So it works out about the same calories but not the same necessarily bang for your buck as it comes to nutrition. So the first one I've picked is a baked potato. Potatoes get such a terrible rap. I don't know why. I mean, they're not even counted as vegetables, which I think is an absolute joke. Potatoes are really healthy. They're full of potassium. They're full of vitamin C. They're really good for you. They are high in carbs, but it's a carb that your body takes a while to break down, so can be used to fuel you for a long period of time. It does take a bit of time to digest, so perhaps having a baked potato for lunch and then 15 minutes later trying to go for a big run is not going to be that comfortable, but don't discredit baked potatoes. For an average baked potato, you're looking at about 270 calories, which is mostly made of carbohydrates, which is about 56 carbs. A little bit of protein, a little bit of fat in there. 270 calories for baked potato. However, if you have a Tesco's iced ring donut for about the same, just a little bit less, 250 calories, are you going to get the same kind of nutritional benefit? It's got half as many carbs, so if you're on a low carb diet, then a better choice for the carb front is to have a donut over a baked potato. But it's got almost 14 times the amount of fat, which is where all of the calories come from, and half as much protein, completely forgetting about how many vitamins and minerals you get from baked potato and not from a donut. Now, I'm not saying we're all sitting at home eating tons of donuts, but it's important to be aware the quality of food that one thing is compared to something else. Baked potato and a donut's a bit drastic, but if we start thinking about what is better for us and what isn't, then we can start making better choices, eating less overall, but better foods that will keep us fuller for longer and is healthier for our bodies as a whole. And so baked potato is very high in carbs with not much else. On the total opposite of that is just a plain old chicken breast. Massive amount of protein. It's basically full protein for only 160 calories. You get 36 grams of protein for 150 gram chicken breast. So it's a big hit of protein for not a lot of calories. Now, if you're just being a completely plain Jane that wanted to keep your calorie count super low, then you'd have half a baked potato and you'd have a chicken breast for breakfast, lunch and dinner every day. You'd be super skinny, you'd be super healthy, and you'd be really miserable. I'm not saying do that. I'm just trying to make you aware of the calorie count of the content of food that makes up certain food groups. And those three food groups, as we said, protein, fats and carbs are all really important. I would never tell anybody to cut out any of those three groups. A low carb diet or low fat diet is not good. We need fats, healthy fats, your oily fishes, your avocados, your nuts, your extra virgin olive oils, that kind of thing, for your body to maintain its balance. Oils are really good for your cell structure, for your skin, for your hair. We need your protein for muscular repair, for bone growth, and we need our carbohydrates because that is just simply energy. That is what allows us to move forwards. There are better and worse forms of each. If you're a vegetarian, then that's fine. You just need to look at alternative options for your protein sources. There are a lot out there. You just need to be a little bit more careful that by increasing your protein intake from vegetable sources doesn't lead to an increased calorie intake, because quite a lot of high protein vegetarian meals or snacks are quite high in fats and sugars, so it's just important to be aware of that. The last thing I just want to mention on that subject is calorie intake. I think the average that they suggest for the human being is 2,000 calories. However, for somebody perhaps like myself, I exercise 3 or 4 times a week. I'm 5'10", average height and build. I'm probably slightly above that for my maintenance requirement, probably about 2,200. But my neighbour across the road is 5'4". She's a very thin, petite kind of person. If she was to eat 2,000 calories a day, she'd probably end up looking like me in no time, which is not a good thing. So it's important to learn about yourself. Don't just take an off-the-shelf idea or diet that is meant to work for everybody, because that's not true. What works for me will be different for you, will be different for your friend, from your sister, from your brother. We all work in different ways. We all react differently to foods and to diets. So if somebody's telling you to eat a certain amount, it should be specifically for you. It should have a reasoning behind it, and it should change as you progress through whatever diet or training plan you are on. So don't just follow an off-the-shelf kind of rack. The last thing I want to pick up on is something that my good friend Paul brought to my attention yesterday. He texted me, he said, "Ian, I'm just looking at your Strava profile and it says you ran on Sunday, you were out for an hour and you only burnt 300 calories. But I was out today, I only ran for 50 minutes, but mine says I burnt almost 900 calories. Why is that? What's the difference?" And this is very true, and I'm sure you've experienced a lot. You might have put your Apple Watch on, gone out for a run, you've come back, and it says you've been out for an hour, it says you've done 10k or something, but you've only burnt 300 calories. The next day you might go out, you might do the same thing, it says you've done double. The watches and apps are good, but they can never be relied upon completely. Especially if they're overestimating. If they're saying that you go out and you do a spin session on your bike and you do 1,500 calories when actually you're not, and you then eat the same amount because your app says that you can, then you're going to be in a calorific surplus, you're going to put on weight, and we're going to be back to square one, if not in a worse place. So tracking is great. It's good to see your progress in terms of distance and speed and quality of your running. But don't always believe the calorie burn that you're getting from an app, whichever one it may be. They could be underestimating, they could be overestimating. They could just be having an off day. Use a bit of common sense. The apps did say completely different things. I was out for longer and went further than Paul did, but Paul's app says he burnt twice as many calories, when more likely we both probably burnt. I probably burnt a little bit more, he probably burnt a little bit less, so it's important just to be aware. The best thing you can do is really just learn about your body. A lot of it is trial and error. It's a bit of practice. It can take a couple of weeks for your body to adjust to a new training regime, a new eating plan, or whatever it is. So try something different. Try decreasing your carbohydrate intake and increasing your protein intake. Do that for 3 weeks. See if you notice any changes. Try eating more fruits and vegetables for a couple of weeks. See if that makes any difference. The important thing is just to try and change one thing at a time. Mainly because for any scientific experiments, if you change too many variables at one time, then you don't know what's worked. So we can't then see what's worked and use that for the future to keep progressing. If you change 5 things at once and something works to make you lose weight or to make you get fitter and faster, then we can't just focus on that 1 or 2 things that have worked and then forget about the other 3 things. Make one change, try it for 2 or 3 weeks, see if you notice a difference. Make another change, try it for 2 or 3 weeks, see if it makes another difference. 2 or 3 weeks, in some respects sounds like a long time, but in other respects, there's 52 weeks in a year. I'm 50. I'm 30. What is 30? Well, let's wait. Let's say 10 years, 52 weeks in a year. That's 520 weeks just for the past decade. So out of 520 weeks, 3 of them, it's worth giving it a shot. Try something, see if it works for you. Learn about your body and how that change has made any effect at all. Accept it. Move on, either discard it if it's not worked or acknowledge it and use that for your benefit later on. It's all about getting to know your body. Because as I said a minute ago, we're all different. Paul's different to me, Karen's different to Susie. What one can eat and the other can do is totally different. So forget about each other in that respect. Focus on yourself and what changes you need to make to get better and to get fitter and to get faster. So I'm going to leave it there today. It's a lot of information. We're going to try not to overload you with too much in one go. If you've got any questions that you want to ask just now, then fire away. Not a problem at all. I'm happy to answer. But it was just main points really were food, specifically sugar in fruits and in other soft fruits mainly, but also in baked potatoes and donuts and chickens. And serving sizes. Two really important things to be aware of. How much sugar you're getting in and how many portion sizes you might be having for yourself. As I've said, I'm a little bit of a Cocoa Pop fiend, so when it comes to eating my Cocoa Pops, I do have more than your average serving size. Check the same is not for yourself, just so that you can stay within the right realms of calorie intake and sugar intake, because if we don't, it can lead to issues down the line. We don't want to become diabetic. We don't want to head into obesity. We want to stay fit and healthy for as long as we can, especially when we're younger. If we do it now, we get it sorted when we're young, it makes it a lot easier when you're older. I've got a little bit of experience from working with older clients who have perhaps not taken such good care of them over a period of time, and it's a lot harder to get back to somewhere healthy than it is just to maintain something that you've absolutely nailed when you're younger. But that's not to say if you are older that you should give up, that you're a lost cause. No, it's just going to take a little bit more work, and that's okay. You've made it this far, let's push on a little bit further and make sure we can enjoy the rest of our life. So if you've got any questions, fire away. If you have any subjects you want me to discuss next week, then just let me know and I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. We'll try and pick up some different subjects each week. Maybe next week we'll look at exercise as a whole, the difference maybe between motivation and determination and discipline. Because, we all wake up and, I've got no motivation today. We'll see about that. We'll see what that really means. We'll dig deeper into it and see if we can get anything coming out of it. Otherwise, thank you very much for coming along. I hope you learned something. Feel free to go write it down, to go and sit by yourself for 10 minutes, make some notes about anything that you've taken away from it or anything that you're going to focus on for the rest of this week or maybe the next few weeks. And if you want to talk to me about it, if you want to run past anything, then just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. So if that is all, then thank you again. Have yourselves a wonderful Tuesday afternoon. We've got Susie's class over on our members page if you want to go and join her. If you want to join the members page, then just let me know. Otherwise, thanks again, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks.